I had a 12-gauge shotgun in one hand, my retired U.S. Marshal badge in the other, and Meredith, the self-declared queen of the Hickory Glen HOA, was crying on my porch like a scolded kid. Her so-called neighborhood watch had just been caught trying to break into my property, and I had the surveillance footage, police reports, and about half a dozen charges filed with the sheriff's office to prove it. She said she was checking for squatters. That's when I showed her the video and the sheriff showed her the cuffs. But let's rewind a bit. Want to know how this all started? Buckle up. It was about 6 weeks earlier. I just moved into a cabin tucked deep in the woods, maybe 15 minutes from the nearest paved road and a solid 40 from anything that resembled a town. Quiet, scenic, surrounded by pine and birch, and most importantly, far from the bureaucratic circus that was my old life. After 2 decades training federal agents in tactical entry and firearms proficiency, I'd earned my peace. Bought the cabin with cash. Private land. No covenants. No rules. Or so I thought. 3 days after moving in, I got a knock at the door, not a friendly knock. No, this was the kind you expect when someone's got a warrant. I opened it to find a woman in her 50s with a tight blonde bun, dark sunglasses, and a polo shirt that said Hickory Glen HOA. Her smile was so fake my dog actually growled. She introduced herself as Meredith Figuresand, said she was the president of the HOA. Which was interesting considering my land wasn't even part of the HOA. But she waved that off, telling me I was technically within the visual perimeter of Hickory Glen. As if that made me hers. She handed me a binder full of paperwork and told me we like to maintain a certain standard around here. I told her politely that I wasn't interested. Thanked her for the welcome. Then I went back to stacking firewood. She stood there at the edge of my driveway for a solid minute, watching like she was expecting me to suddenly salute and start painting my cabin beige. That should have been the end of it. But instead, it was the beginning of a 6-week standoff that still makes me shake my head. Next morning, there was a printed notice taped to my door. Violation: unapproved ATV activity after sunset. Turns out I'd gone for a ride at 7:30 p.m. and Meredith had watched me through her binoculars. Yes, she actually said binoculars. I laughed it off again. Not part of her HOA. But then came more notices. Dog barking too much. Improper firewood stacking. Trash bins visible from the road. The kicker? She started calling me neighbor in that saccharine tone that made me want to sweep my cabin for hidden bugs. Then she left a laminated friendly suggestion on my truck windshield recommending I repaint the cabin in neutral earth tones to better reflect the community aesthetic. Ma'am, this isn't suburbia. This is a forest. The aesthetic out here is trees, mud, and the occasional bear. Things turned real when I saw footprints in the snow beneath my back window one morning, not mine, not my dog's. Someone had walked right up to the house, peered inside, and wandered off into the trees. That's when I installed cameras. High-res, motion-activated, night vision. I wasn't paranoid, I was trained. I kept it civil until I made the mistake of showing up to one of their HOA meetings to clear the air. Meredith stood at a podium like she was addressing the Pentagon. Half the room in matching polos. She opened with, "We take security seriously in Hickory Glen." Then projected a blurry photo of my cabin on a screen. "This is the property in question," she said. "There are concerns about weapons stockpiling." I raised my hand. "You mean the legally owned firearms locked in a safe on land that's not under your jurisdiction?" She smiled tightly. "We've had break-ins before." I replied, "Then hope the next guy's as trained as I am. Otherwise, your break-in problem is gonna turn into a body bag problem." That didn't sit well. Her mouth twisted like she'd tasted something sour. She ended the meeting with a little warning, "We'll be watching," as if she hadn't been already. That night, I was brushing my teeth when I heard a faint buzzing. Stepped outside and looked up. A drone. Hovering just above the tree line, camera aimed directly at my second-story window. I didn't panic. I moved like I'd been trained. But by the time I came back with my shotgun, it was gone. I reported it to the sheriff. Not much they could do unless I caught it in the act. So I filed a complaint with the FAA and installed another camera angled right where that drone had hovered. Motion alerts linked to my phone. Meredith had crossed from nosy to invasive. Then came the break-in attempt. It was 2:17 a.m. when my phone pinged. Porch cam. I opened the feed and froze. There they were, Meredith and 2 of her little watch squad creeping onto my porch. One had a crowbar. Meredith had a flashlight and was muttering instructions like she was leading a SEAL team. I watched one of them try the doorknob. Then the crowbar came out. They didn't know they'd triggered the silent alarm. By the time I had boots on, a cruiser was en route. I loaded the 12-gauge, threw on my old marshal badge, and stepped outside just as the patrol car rolled up. The three of them stood frozen in the headlights, hands raised like raccoons caught in a cooler. Meredith was crying, babbling about squatters and safety checks. What she didn't know was I had it all on video: her whispered orders, the crowbar, the laugh where she said, "He'll never know we were here." Oh, I knew. And so did the sheriff. I stepped forward, held up the badge in one hand and the shotgun in the other, and said, "Ma'am, you just broke into the wrong cabin." But that was only the beginning. Meredith didn't retreat. She doubled down. Within 48 hours, she posted on the HOA board claiming she'd been helping law enforcement check on an abandoned property. Mine, with my truck in the driveway and porch lights on. She even claimed she feared I was injured or dead. It was laughable. Then the drone came back, but this time I was ready. I'd mounted a camera with infrared 24-hour loop, cloud uploads. When that familiar buzz returned around 9:30 p.m., I didn't flinch. Walked inside, grabbed my Remington 870, chambered a shell. The drone hovered 20 feet above the roofline. I gave it 2 seconds to steady, then fired. Direct hit. It crashed into the brush. I retrieved the wreckage and the memory card was still intact. Weeks of footage. Me chopping wood, walking the dog, practicing archery. And one especially disturbing clip zoomed in on me, asleep in bed. Meredith had been filming me at night. That wasn't surveillance. That was obsession. I sent the footage to the FAA. They didn't take it lightly. Turns out it was a serious federal violation. I also handed it to the sheriff's office. Meredith had even bragged about owning the drone at that HOA meeting. Everything was recorded. But she still wasn't done. With the drone out of commission, she ramped up her neighborhood watch. 5 retirees in safety vests with walkie-talkies, patrolling like a bad parody of Homeland Security. One guy even had a clipboard and aviators. I caught them loitering near my mailbox. "You lose something?" I asked. He jumped. Meredith's voice crackled over his radio, hostile energy detected. I leaned in and said, "You know impersonating law enforcement is a felony, right?" They scattered like leaves in a storm. Then one of the reasonable neighbors, a guy named Pete, came by. Told me Meredith was spreading rumors I was stockpiling illegal weapons. That I was prepping for a standoff. According to her, I was a domestic threat. The irony nearly made me laugh. That night, my cameras caught them again, Meredith and her crew sneaking through the woods near my back line. That's when I set the trap. I bought an old safe, filled it with fake, classified documents, and placed it where it was just visible through a side window. Tripwire alarm under the doormat. Motion lights. The whole works. 2 nights later, it triggered. 3:42 a.m. Porch cam caught the trio again, hoodies, gloves, thinking they were stealthy. As soon as they tried the window, the siren went off. They bolted. Next morning, Meredith was handing out flyers about rogue elements in the neighborhood. I framed one of them, labeled me as Cabin Resident A with a grainy drone photo, and hung it above my gun rack. Then I compiled everything: drone footage, break-in attempts, the fake patrol, and sent it to an old contact at the marshals. He laughed, then asked, "You want this kicked to the state attorney?" Absolutely. That was when the hammer fell. FAA fines, Sheriff's Department charges, trespassing, harassment, impersonating law enforcement. One of her buddies had worn a vest labeled security. Meredith claimed she didn't know it was illegal. No one bought it. Then she filed a lawsuit accusing me of emotional distress, invasion of privacy, defamation. I countersued with everything: illegal surveillance, trespassing, harassment. I had video, audio, police reports, FAA documentation. In court, she cried. Played the victim. Claimed she feared for her safety. Then I played the footage. Drone zoomed in on my window. Her creeping with a crowbar. Her voice laughing about checking for squatters. The courtroom was dead silent. Judge tossed her case. Let mine move forward. After that, her little kingdom crumbled. HOA board removed her. Half resigned. Local news got the story. Her face, once proudly printed on HOA newsletters, vanished. Her patrol? Gone. One day, she came back. Alone. No clipboard, no sunglasses. Just tired eyes and a white envelope. I came to apologize, she said. I didn't respond. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I finally spoke. You scared them. I just reminded them what fear looks like when it bites back. She handed me the envelope. I didn't open it. Later, it turned out to be a written apology and a $5,000 check. I handed it to my lawyer. We didn't cash it. We weren't in this for money. The judge ruled in my favor. Meredith had to pay damages, court costs, and attend an ethics seminar if she ever wanted another community leadership role. FAA fine went through. She moved out a month later. No forwarding address. Now the cabin is quiet again. I put up a small sign above the gate. Smile. You're already on camera. People still stop by. Old friends. New neighbors. Cops. Everyone asks the same thing, did that really happen? I just grin. Every second of it.